this gives our young people, and I speak at a lot of colleges and universities, a horrible mutually exclusive choices between doing well and doing good. I see them struggling with it all over the place. You know, I want to go into the nonprofit sector, but I can't afford the financial sacrifice. And my parents don't want me to go into the nonprofit sector, interestingly enough. Business Week did a survey of Stanford MBAs, 10 years out of business school, to look at their compensation. And the median compensation package for a Stanford MBA, 10 years out of business school, this is at an average age of 38, was $400,000. The average CEO, the average salary of the CEO of a medical charity in the United States was $232,000, and the average salary of a CEO of a hunger charity was $84,000. Now think about this for a second. There's no way you're going to get very many people with a $400,000 annual earning potential to make a $316,000 annual sacrifice to become the CEO of a hunger charity. It's literally cheaper for them to donate $100,000 a year to the hunger charity, get a $50,000 tax deduction, so they're still earning $350,000. They're roughly $250,000 ahead of the game, and they have a lifetime of that kind of earning potential ahead of them. These are the salaries of the 5 highest paid executives in health charities. This is in 2002. So there you see the American Cancer Society at $415,000, the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, the Salk Institute, the Juvenile Diabetes Foundation at $460,000, and the Stowers Institute at $717,000. Now, in the wrong context, which is the context the media tends to put these salaries in, these seem scandalous. Now, you can sort of hear the anchor on the evening news saying, you thought your hard-earned donations were going to find a cure for juvenile diabetes, but in reality they're going to fund the $500,000 pay package of the honchos that are running the organization, and people get terribly upset. Who wouldn't when it's put in that kind of frame? But let's take these salaries and put them on a different scale, and let's compare them to the 5 highest paid executives for the same year in private health insurance. So health still, right? So these salaries over here that you can no longer see, those are the ones that we were just looking at. Compared to the head of Aetna, who made $8.9 million, or the head of Coventry, who made $21.7 million, or the head of Oxford Health Plans, who made $76 million. So the 5 charity executives combined that year made a total of about $2.5 million. The insurance executives made a total of about $138 million, was 74 times what the charity executives made, but these are the salaries we get all bent out of shape about. Now, it's an upside-down world that values the affordability and the institutionalization of disease 74 times greater than its eradication. If you think about our mindset, we allow people to make huge amounts of money doing any number of things that will bring harm to the poor. But we want to crucify anybody who wants to make money doing something that might help them. I don't understand the logic of that. If somebody does, I'd love to have it explained to me. You want to make $1 million, $5 million selling violent video games to kids? Go for it. We'll put you on the cover of Forbes and Wired magazine. But you want to make $1 million trying to cure kids of leukemia? You're a parasite. Wonder why we haven't cured leukemia. The second area that I looked at was advertising and marketing. So we give the for-profit sector enormous freedom to advertise. They can spend until the last dollar no longer produces a penny of value. But donors don't like to see their contributions spent on paid advertising and charity. The attitude is sort of, you know, if you can get an ad donated, that's great. But I don't want my money spent on advertising. It's wasteful. It's money that doesn't go to the needy, so we think. Imagine if we said to Apple, you can advertise, so long as you can get the advertising donated, you know, at 2 o'clock in the morning or on the last page of the sports section. A rough estimate puts the 2006 nonprofit advertising sector spending at about $7.6 billion versus $729 billion for the rest of the U.S. economy. Now, we all know that the nonprofit sector is made up of universities and hospitals and museums and operas. If you look at the Health and Human Services portion of that pie, which is the space that a lot of you are working in, it's at maximum about 20% of the total nonprofit sector pie. So if you adjust for that, you have about $1.6 billion, and it's a liberal estimate still of spending on advertising for health and human services charities versus $729 billion for everything else, or 479 ads for consumer products versus 1 for every health and human services charity. This is the 2004 advertising spending for Save the Children was about $6.4 million. The 2005 advertising for Entertain the Children, also known as the Walt Disney Company, was $2.3 billion. I haven't opened the LA Times this morning, but I'm sure if we opened it, there would be full-page ads for, you know, Macy's and for Singular and for General Motors' latest, you know, interest-free deal, and for Home Depot. But you're not going to see a full-page ad for ending violence against women or a full-page ad, you know, for adopting foster kids. So there's this huge imbalance in the economy in the messaging that comes at us. And John Kenneth Galbraith wrote famously about that, about how the for-profit sector first builds the product, then they build the market, you know, with the great the engines of advertising. Well, we're not building a market for these causes that we care about out in the masses. Charitable giving has remained constant at about 2% of GDP for the last 30 years. So the nonprofit sector is not taking market share away from the for-profit sector. And I believe firmly that that's because largely we're not marketing. The third area that I looked at was risk-taking for revenue development. So we live here in Los Angeles. We all know that Paramount Pictures can make a $100 million movie that flops. It's considered part of their business model, right? They make a bunch of movies. Some of them succeed, some of them fail on a big scale. More succeed than fail, and out of that, they have a huge business, and they have huge learning curves. But I can tell you, and you probably have the same experience from my own personal experience, you try a $5 million charity event that doesn't produce a 70% return in the first 12 months, call the Attorney General, you know, call the newspapers, somebody's up to something. So nonprofits are petrified of trying any new bold revenue generating experiments in the public eye for fear that they might fail. The fourth area that I looked at was long-term investment in revenue development. So Amazon goes for 6 years not returning a profit to investors. The investors all understand it. It's in the interest of an objective further down the road, which is build market dominance. But everything in the nonprofit sector is measured in 12-month windows. What did you spend on overhead in the last 12 months? And if it was more than 30%, heads will roll. So can you imagine some charitable endeavor where for 6 years no money goes to the needy in the interest of a huge goal like Amazon had? It simply would not be permitted. Permitted on the program side, but not for generating new revenues.